I feel like the be who you are thing is so important. And I don't want to be like, oh, I didn't hear that enough. Because
let's talk about why. Why is it?
You know, but the thing, you know why? Because I think the previous generation was a little scared, right? Like, and I don't mean anything negative by this, like, because my parents were pretty supportive of like all my creative stuff, but they were also the type of people who were like, get a real job, and not that was a bad thing of advice, right? It taught me a lot about myself. Like, I mean, I had some bad jobs along the way, but it afforded me the opportunity to hone my craft and do all these things because that was important to me. But I think so much of it does come from like a level of fear, right? I would say with my loved ones, I'm sure they were like, Mark, we just want you to be like successful and not like a leech effectively. And not in a mean way, but again, like
don't struggle.
Right, exactly. So I know it was always born out of like the positive thing where it was like, hey, this is why we're saying, I get that you want to go be in TV shows and you know what I mean, Mark, but maybe also learn something that's useful, right? And then what's funny is I spent my whole career just making that kind of content.
Why do those that even care about us, why do they think they're the ones to give us the advice?
Oh, that's a great question. You know why? Because over the years, society has enforced a really weirdly rigid policy of having people like it's a whole like, well, family's always what matters, and I'm kind of like, not always. Like maybe family sometimes puts a magnifying glass on what is not good about people. Like I think blanket statements are the dangerous thing more than anything else. And so when I think about that, it's like I think there's obviously a form of authority, right? Parent to child. So there's a little bit of that in there.
It's okay for a while. It gets us to a certain point.
Right. And then after that, it's kind of like, hey, you know, I say this now because my dad was it's very funny. He and I have very similar temperament, personality, thought process. He's very creative, but he came up in a world where they for sure were not going to let him be funny and weird the way he needed to be. And he and I joked most of like my young life where he was just kind of like, be less of this because it's really, he's like, I should be wealthier than I am, but because I was like weird, it was more like, yeah, I'm fun and a good time, but it's like that wasn't helpful. And I thought he always did really well, so it was funny that like I'd get those kinds of little notes too. But then the reality is that the world just shifted in a way that they couldn't foresee, maybe, you know. And so maybe a good piece of advice for anybody young thinking about this is that be open to how the future could go, because again, if I told my parents 10 years ago, guys, I'm going to host a very popular food show inside a grocery store, they'd be like, cool, so the weed's a problem? You know what I mean? Like, that would be the conversation we'd be having instead of go get it, you know? And by the way, again, I'm saying I feel like I have good parents, and they were like on board. And then when things started going that way, not only did I get the you're doing great and keep doing this, but also a lot of those fun things where like, you know, it means a lot when you have like a strain, not even a strain, that says too much, but like a tough relationship with a parent who didn't understand what you were doing, to now me and my dad talk all the time. We're like, you know, it'd be a good idea. You should have the customers do this game with you. And it's great. Whereas like, you know, again, 10 years ago when I was doing similar things, he's kind of like, yeah, okay, maybe you should do a different job or go do this. And I'm like, now he's like, okay, I get it. You did it, kid. So that's been kind of fun.
You know what? This is easy. So I don't have kids. So this is easy. I get to speak about being a parent because I had parents.
Yeah.
See, they try telling the ones that don't have kids, like, you can't say bullshit.
Yeah.
I had a parent, though. I was a kid.
Right.
So here's what parents have screwed up with.
Okay.
This is it. This is my critique from a high level, and it comes from a great place. They're trying to remove the struggle, and they just want our lives to be easier and better than theirs.
Yeah.
But the problem with that is that the reason why they have developed as good of a life as they have, and they're good parents to us, is because they went through the struggle.
Right.
Because they faced the adversity.
Sure.
Because now they can look back and they know the advice to give us. So it comes from a good place, but it's like, hey, guys, like, losing
helps.
It matters. It matters
so much.
And knowing that I took the L. I'm somebody, there's some really big social media stars out here, and one of them, I think the guy's awesome, but what he says is, he's like, man, you got to fall in love with failure and losing. And I'm like, nah, man, bullshit. Like, here's the thing. I'm not going to fall in love with it.
Yeah.
But I accept that it's a necessary part of the process.
Yeah.
If I want to be great, I have to know. So when I see it and feel it, man, let me do something so I don't do this again. And I think being a parent, it probably hurts so much to see your kids lose and fail.
Sure. I can't even imagine. I also don't have kids.
Okay, yep.
But I agree with you on this. I think this is and beautifully put too, because it comes from such a noble, positive place. But then it's like, yeah, by removing some of those safeguards, you don't learn certain things. I mean, think about this. It's like if nobody ever turned the stove on, would I have ever burnt my hand and thus like learned caution in general, right? Or fell off a bike or any of these kinds of things, right? And it's like, so I very much appreciate every parent's desire to do that. But it's like, yeah, it's like maybe pick your battles a little bit on it,
Yep.
Let them fail a little bit. I mean, I think had I not spent what I feel like is most of my adult life losing, I don't think I would, appreciate what I have now at all. And I don't think I would have developed a work ethic. I think and this is always tough, especially because I have a lot of young friends. And I'm like, unpopular opinion, guys, but being broke and having bad jobs is why I have a cool one now, kind of a thing. And look, maybe that doesn't work for everybody, but I know I responded really well to it, where it was like, it created the passion in me. And it made me go, I hate this current thing I'm experiencing so much. I want to do whatever it takes to get what I want out, right? And I see a lot of discourse in the opposite way. They're like, it's tough. I'm like, I know it, and I get it. I understand, and I'm so sorry. And guess what? It's probably not going to get easier. But if we can accept that together, you also could convince a grocery store to build you a studio. I don't know if that's real.
You're like,
but,
how the hell does this happen? But so when you said, hey, I don't know if this works for everyone.
Yeah.
Who do you know that's achieved a really good level of success?
Oh, yes.
That has done it different.
That's a good question. I mean,
I don't know anyone.
Yeah, I mean, I think everybody I know that's been in a really successful place has struggled to get there. I mean, look, I could think of I grew up with a bunch of really wealthy kids, so I know some of them definitely got an easy hand in.
But their parent or someone else.
Right, for sure. And then that goes back to our previous discussion of like their life got made so easy that I don't mean this mean. Well, maybe a little bit because it's funny, but sometimes I'm like, oh, you guys don't even have like full personalities. Like they just like, this is your job. Here's how you collect a check, whatever. I'm like, oh, I feel bad about it, right? And like I think about every time I was broke which was for a long time, but it taught me a lot of cool things, like how to navigate and be adaptable when you don't have money, which is huge in society now, right? It's like all these little tools that I don't think I would have picked up if it weren't for the fact that I had a bad run for a while.
You had to figure it the F out, man.
For sure, dude. And I'm still figuring that out. I'm like,
what's
next week's show? Oh, my God.
Yeah,
you know what I mean?
What happens is you wired your brain, though, to figure things out.
Right.
I'm not saying we're great all the time. I'm not saying we're experts, but you just have there's a problem. Hey, let me work this thing.
Right.
Let me work the problem.
Yeah, I'm at least going to take a swing at it. Like, I'll walk up to the plate every single time.